Enfield Blight Review Committee. We can start off with the roll call for people who are here. So, Mrs. Prague. Karen, I think you're on mute.
Yep. Yes, I'm here.
Great. Councilor Hemler.
Here.
And then Councilor Crissati.
Here.
Perfect. So if there's no objection, the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our December 22nd, 2020 meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. So the minutes are approved. Moving on to new business, the one application we have before us today is regarding 19 Welch Drive. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, my name is Nicole Fitzgerald. I'm from Bendette McHugh, and I represent Emmons Bank, who currently owns the property through a foreclosure.
Great. So traditionally, we've given applicants roughly 5 minutes to state why they believe they should be entitled to some form of relief. So, Ms. Fitzgerald, if you're ready to proceed, you can do so.
Sure, thank you. So my client obviously was made aware of these violations back in 2018. They prepared a chronology for me, shows that they were diligent in reaching out to the homeowners to ask them to please clear the violations at the property. Additionally, they had reached out to the city to see if there was anything they could do. At that time, the mortgage was current, and therefore they didn't have any a legal right to enter the property to fix the violations. Continually tried to contact, the homeowners. The homeowner said, "Oh yes, we'll fix it. We're in contact with the city," and they kept going back and forth. The homeowner would default, and then they would bring themselves current, which eventually commenced the foreclosure in the beginning of 2019. At that point, they initiate the foreclosure. Obviously, it takes some time to go through the process. Again, my client can't just go onto the property and fix violations, unfortunately. The homeowner, one, they're legally not allowed to, and two, the owners specifically asked them not to. They tried to get someone out there to take pictures to see what was going on. I guess the violations were in the back of the property, so they couldn't do that. The homeowners divorced. The woman moved out. The male homeowner was a truck driver, so he would go on for lengths of time. My client tried to secure the property at one of the times that he's out on the road, but he immediately came back and called and said, "No, I'm still living at the property. I'm just out for periods of time." And again, they resumed conversation. "Please, can you reach out to the city? Can you fix?" And at one point, the homeowner said, "Oh yeah, I talked to a contractor. I have someone coming out." That was mid 2019. And then at the end of 2019, the homeowner stopped taking my client's calls altogether. That was in the swing of the foreclosure. My client took title to the property through the foreclosure in March of last year. And as we know, COVID hit. They were not allowed to evict. So the property sat there, not getting fixed. Again, same problem. They weren't allowed to go onto the property to fix violations. They couldn't evict them or their hands were tied, essentially. Eventually, the homeowner left willingly in November. And again, they did property inspections monthly while after the foreclosure was over, just to see if the homeowner moved out willingly, because he was no longer willing to communicate with my client. So month to month, they did check. Finally, November, it came back vacant. They had to post a 9-day notice. Once they did that, they immediately got in contact with Enfield again to see what they could do about reducing the fine and fixing the violations. Again, because of COVID, there was shortages in the construction material that they did to get the siding. So it took, it looks like about, I think I calculated 56 days from when they cured the property to when they were able to fix violations. They filled out obviously the lien reduction application. They've asked me to represent them in this hearing, looking for a reduction, a significant reduction. I calculated I believe in some paperwork it said there was a $150 daily fine. So I calculated to be $8,400, which would account for the 56 days as soon as they were able to get on the property to when they fixed the violations. So really, it's just a case of their hands were being tied. They knew what was going on. They made all attempts to get in touch with the homeowners. They called the city, and they really couldn't do anything else until they were able to get onto the property.
Thank you, Attorney Fitzgerald. So I happened to look at the docket sheet for that foreclosure action and saw that those dates seemed to line up with what I saw. I saw that your client took the property via strict foreclosure.
Yes.
Do you know if there's any plan in place to go after the borrower for any sort of deficiency judgment at this point?
So in addition, which I didn't mention, this loan was insured by FHA. So FHA pretty much does not allow deficiencies. And they also, so my client has to convey this property to HUD. It's under the terms of the note and the mortgage, and they cannot convey it to HUD with any liens on the property or any issues with the property. So they are ready to convey. I have an executed deed ready to be recorded once this lien is resolved and released. But unfortunately, they can't go after the homeowners for any type of deficiency.
And so the property would pass, it's sort of a matter of contract set out in the deed and note. There's no separate purchase and sale agreement to convey the property from your client to HUD. Is that correct?
No, there isn't. It's a no consideration deed. It's a warranty deed for no consideration, which, like I said, I have a copy, or I have the original executed, but I have a copy I could submit, if you wanted to review. But in terms of the foreclosure, we just record a certificate of foreclosure.
Yep.
Which, it's my client title, and then they'll convey through a warranty deed to HUD.
Okay. Does anyone else any other board member have a question for Attorney Fitzgerald?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So they're handing it over to HUD. Is that, as far as we're concerned, equivalent to a sale agreement, a pending sale agreement? Are we considering that?
It's for no consideration. Once HUD takes title to the property, they're going to get an agent and list it on the market like any other, person who's selling a home.
Right. This was actually more of I apologize. This is more of a question to our board. Is this the equivalent to having a pending sale? Because otherwise we have to wait a whole year. That's why I'm asking.
Yes,
right.
Counselor, Counselor Hemler, yes, this was one of the questions I originally had. This is Kasha Perciello. There is no official purchase and sale agreement on the house. It has not been clean a year, but because, we brought it to the Blight Review Board, despite not meeting that condition, because it is, I feel like it's a unique, so I thought it was up to, the Blight Review Committee to really decide on how to act on this.
Okay.
And Kelly, this is also a situation in which there really wouldn't be any sort of freestanding purchase and sale agreement. It all has to happen this way as a matter of content of the original mortgage.
Okay. And I did go through the paperwork that you sent. I saw in the pictures there was some problems with the vegetation, but I don't recall seeing a violation for that. So I was just wondering, because I know we can make an exception for during the winter months for vegetation.
If I'm reading the documents correctly, I think there were two separate violations. First being the longer duration one was for missing windows, structural damage, cracks, or missing siding. That was one. And then the second was for persistent garbage.
Oh, okay. So there wasn't an issue with vegetation. Okay, that's what I was just wondering. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board for Attorney Fitzgerald? Okay, so I think we can probably move on to the board discussion at this point. Thank you, Attorney Fitzgerald, for your input.
Thank you. When should I expect to hear back?
So we'll deliberate here.
Okay.
If we make a decision, there is a $10,000 jurisdictional threshold. So if we come to a conclusion or a decision today, and that amount of abatement is less than $10,000, we have the jurisdiction to waive that. If it's anything in excess of $10,000, that would then have to go on to the town council for a vote.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice day.
Oh, hold on one second.
Oh, okay.
Councilor Crissati, I think you're on mute.
Oh.
Technical
All right,
difficulties.
there we go. I think you're unmuted, Counselor
All right,
Crisati.
all right, very good. So you said you're looking for a reduction, approximately 56 days, and a reduction in liens of 8,400. That's what you're asking for, that reduction?
Not a reduction of that. I'm looking for, that would be the amount that my client would owe, because that's the amount of time that they had, they had possession of the property and they had title to the property.
All right, so that's the amount that your client is willing to pay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they have to pay whatever is determined,
Yeah.
but that, I think that's what they're asking for. That's what they think is reasonable under the circumstances and based on the facts of the case. Yes, that's
Okay.
what they think to be liable for. Yes.
All right,
And I'm sorry, what was your calculation on that specific amount?
So that was from November 19th of 2020. Then they were able to go onto the property to, I believe, January 14th this year.
14th.
That was
Yeah.
when you guys, the city said that the liens were cured, and that's 56 days at $150 a day.
And what was the total number? It was 8,000?
8,400.
Okay.
and so prior to the couple of storms that we've had, all of the garbage and everything is cleaned up, and I have not seen that property like during the fall. Has the yard been totally cleaned up?
I mean, as far as I know, I don't have any personal knowledge. I haven't been to the property. My client advised that it's, not in violation of anything. So I'm not aware if it is.
As
Okay.
of our blight review inspected it on January 14th, and it was brought into compliance as of that date.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything further? Any further questions for Attorney Fitzgerald while she's here? Okay. Thanks so much.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.
So the total amount of the lien here is in excess of $71,000. Obviously, reducing that to what the applicant has requested would be quite a large amount. I guess I should just solicit some opinions from the board first to see what people are thinking about this one.
Well, I'm a little. This is my first meeting in terms of knowing about this particular property and the total amount of over close to 73,000, and then to a reduction to 8,400. That's pretty good chunk of change. However, you have to look at, if we do settle on this, I guess the ultimate goal is to get the property back on the tax rolls and, have a family that's going to be worthwhile, moving in there and taking hold of the property and getting it back on the rolls. So, long term, it could, if they were very diligent in making the corrections, that totaled $8,400. So, but it's under that $10,000 threshold. So
It would actually be well in excess of the $10,000.
yes, that's right. Well in excess of the 10,000. Yeah.
One of the broader policies we've talked about since the creation of the board was the idea that it's better to promote private home ownership in town. and that it doesn't really help to have a large number of properties when there is an alternative. And so to the extent that these fees are a substantial impediment to getting the home into the hands of private individuals, I think that is sort of weighed in our thinking about how much of these fees to abate. So I think I agree with you there, that, you know, that's certainly something we should be considering.
Correct.
I did drive by the property today, and it is really, really nicely cleaned up. It looks just like every single other house in the entire thing. They did a really, really good job. And I'm not sure, she's saying $150 a day. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's only $75 a day?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think what she
So
was
she-
talking about is if there are concurrent violations,
Mhm.
each one carries a fine of $75 a day.
Oh,
So
okay.
if for the
Okay.
the period of time in which there are two concurrent or more violations, it's each one is 75 per day.
Oh, okay.
In this case, just looking at the materials we've received, one of the violations, which I think relates to the garbage that had piled up, was for a relatively short period of time. The dates of violation are from January 23rd, 2019 to February 11th, 2019. So, I mean, we're talking about less than a month of violation accrued for the garbage violation. Kasha, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yes, that's correct. That is that January 2019 through February 2019 is the $14.25 plus a $24 lien fee.
Sure. So that, I mean, the garbage aspect of it was remedied a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I would
Pretty
say.
quick, yeah.
And that completely, that violation did not happen when the bank had title to the property at all. So it's kind of hard from where I'm sitting to attribute any sort of blame to the lender for that portion.
Right.
And so to the extent that she was saying, you know, the calculation should be $150 a day, I think that it's maybe more like $75 a day, which really, to me, I did the math. I had 55 days, which is the period of time in which the bank took physical possession of the property to the date that the property was brought up to standard. To me, that math was something along the lines of about $4,100, $4,125 is how that math would work out at $75 a day.
I have a question, and Jonathan, you might be able to answer this because you know more about real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And excuse my ignorance, but when HUD takes a hold of a property, they immediately just turn around and sell it. So it should be sold relatively quick.
That's ideally. It depends on a lot of factors whenever you're trying to sell property, but yes, I mean HUD will turn around and try to sell the property.
Or right now the inventory of housing everywhere is low, so I would assume that it would be, and we do. Bob is absolutely right. We just want a family to live there, you know. So, and I believe that because, and it's not really. I mean, they followed all the rules. They couldn't evict. They couldn't get on the property. They followed all the rules, so I don't think that they should be punished. I think that they, we should definitely give them some relief.
And unfortunately, in this situation, there really isn't any recourse for the lender to take against the borrower, because if it were a different scenario, oftentimes when a property goes through a foreclosure action, the lender can file what's called a deficiency judgment against that borrower. And so to the extent that there are additional fees the lender needs to recoup, they could go after the borrower for that amount of money. But because of the nature of this loan, that's not possible for the lender here. So if we were to deny their application, the lender would effectively be footing the entire bill for, the sins of the borrower.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think it would be fair somewhere between the calculation you came up with and the calculation she came up with. I mean, we could split the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thought.
I have a question about the fact that technically it's $71,000, even if they only owe $4 and change. does this have to go to the town council in order for us to wipe everything out? So
Yeah.
So the $67,000 that they aren't really responsible for, they still have to go to the town council to get rid of that.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah,
Correct.
Bob would go to his caucus, I would go to my
Mhm.
caucus, and we would
Mhm.
plead the case, and hopefully they would agree.
Okay.
I would tend to say that they probably would agree because we want to get this back on the rolls, you know, and they did everything that they had to do to get this property up to date. And it's unfortunate that it was during the COVID situation, and the previous owner decided that he didn't want to leave. So it's a tough case here.
Yes. We're finding that a lot of these as they come before us are stranger than we anticipated when we were coming
Yeah.
up with the the guidelines for these initially.
And just for the record, I'd like to add just just so I'm clear, the violation beginning June 18th, 2018. So those were actually two violations. That was violation 6, and 17. So it was the missing or boarded windows for a period of more than 90 days, and the severe structure damage or missing siding. So there were two different violations, and that should be page 5 of your packet that has the two beginning that date. Just so that's clear. So I think that's where she's getting the 150 from versus
Got it.
75.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. I just saw that now. That you're absolutely right.
Yep, you're right. So I would be in favor personally of accepting her proposal to reduce the lien down to $8,400.
I agree.
I'm in agreement to that also.
I
Okay, so
agree.
I'll make a motion to accept that.
And I'll second it.
So
Thank
the
you.
motion is to reduce the lien to $8,400. We should take a roll call vote. Mrs. Prague,
4.
Counselor Hemler,
4.
Counselor Crissati,
4.
and I'm also 4. So the motion is passed. That's all we have on the agenda for today. So without objection, I think we should adjourn.
Oh, so moved.
Great.
Second.
Thanks
It was
everyone.
nice seeing everybody. Have a good weekend.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Take care.
everyone.
thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Are we off?